I wasn't going to cut it. I was going to put some tape on top of the helmet to reduce the gap. Well, I put a couple of layers of tape here to reduce the gap. Same on the bottom.
Are you filming us, sir? Oh dear, we should be saying something terribly important. I'm not ready for this vehicle just yet. Give me another 100 years, young man, and then I'll be ready. It should be horse and cart, of course, but anyway. Do you think it'll be big enough for me? Oh, okay. Oh, look, I've got to go and put my crinoline on. This is ridiculous. I'm being seen by my public without my clothes on. Not things flying. Don't let them anywhere near your, And I know why so many people died. There are apparently something like 2,000 one year in the 1860s because you go near a fire and you can't tell.
Well, I can see that. I wonder if there's a tiny bit of room in there.
Mike Freeland takes up half.
Your Majesty, it's all about me. Ask him to look into the things that happened to little settlements where a train, with a rail line and a train arrived, because it alters things so marvellously in our great big country. And when I made this introduction, I said that trains altered our region here, they altered our state. And I don't know if you noticed the trail along the railway line, but that represents the same distance virtually as Melbourne to Sydney. And that's across Victoria. So railways here, locally, railways in our state, railways in our country. So important, as we know.
I'm Andrew, I'm from Deakin University in Geelong. I'm a social researcher. I mostly research different topics, but it's been fun researching this. My connection is that I'm the son of Heather, who lives at the railway station. And I'll talk a little bit about those threads. So I should just acknowledge, as we always do at Deakin University, the Judjawurrung people, who are the traditional owners of the land on which we stand. And today I pay my respect to all elders, past, present and emerging. So my topic is a railway line to Mildura, railways and the social transformation of Victoria. Hopefully you can all see the slides because I have many photographs of the railway station. It was built in 1878 as the railway pushed northwest from Ballarat. Now I should say there's some people here who probably know a lot more about the railways in Victoria than I do, which is okay. I'm happy to be corrected afterwards. And the line eventually reached Mildura in 1903, becoming known as the Yelta-Mildura line. So Yelta is slightly north of Mildura, which is where this particular railway line terminates. Last passenger service was in 1981, and it's been freight since then, and that was just the other morning when a train pulled up and all the gentlemen in high vis were changing. So there's still some railway activity, and I'm sure other people will talk about that today. The station itself is what is known as an early Rosedale station, which, for want of a better way of understanding, it's like a kit home. So they plonked these Rosedale stations in different locations across Victoria. Of course, it was a way of saving money. The Bealiba railway station, built in 1878, it's been in the custody of Heather and Robert Cooper since 1998, which I calculated is 14% of the life of the station. So they're as much of a part of the history of the station as anyone else. And I understand today, apparently, one of the former station masters has been here in Bealiba, and also some of the other people who have lived in the station are also here. Some past owners did strip out all the copper wiring and plumbing before they moved here, so if you're here, the box will come in later on. Heather and Robert have transformed it into a house. You're not allowed in there today, mostly because of the rodent activity. They've built beautiful gardens, and that's a picture of my youngest son in 2007, so my oldest son, who's now 6 foot tall, just inspecting the gardens as they were made. There's my daughter, who's going to read a poem, and one of Heather's dogs, as they were again building the garden. So they've transformed it into a very productive kind of market garden with olives and some of the most incredible citrus. Citrus that's over the septic tank, so maybe that explains it's kind of and that's just a photograph that I took, a sort of a fisheye view of the station, because they've done as much as they can to restore it for something like its Rosedale glory of an earlier time. And it's a place of great beauty, as you can see from that photograph of the sunset. A long time ago, not very far away, somewhere in Bealiba, in the early 20th century, there were other custodians of the railways. And this was printed in a 1954 history of Bealiba, and it talks about the railway gates. And there was a Mrs. Bond who had charge of one of the gates near Mr. Scott's, and she was very crabby, according to this history. The local boys, used to play tricks on her. To get the gates open, one had to call out loudly, "Gate," and Mrs. Bond would come out muttering to herself. One cold, wet night, Mr. Briggs and Mr. Tunce, who had been visiting George Evans's hotel, which closed at 11 o'clock back then, decided to prank her. They called out "Gate," and when Mrs. Bond came out with her lantern, Mr. Tunce mounted Mr. Briggs on his shoulders and trotted through the gates. They were never forgiven by Mrs. Bond. And that's from a book by Stella Ward, The History of Bealiba. It was published in 1954, and a copy of that is at the Alfred Deakin Prime Minister's Library in Geelong. So today's talk, I'm finally going to get on to what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk briefly about Victoria in the 1870s, because that is the context and the time in which this railway was first imagined. I'm going to talk a little bit about building railways in Victoria. So again, I don't want to be corrected about the facts, just imagine it's a good story. Talking a little bit about the Yelta or the Mildura line, which is the name of the line that punches through up to Mildura. I'm going to close on the social transformation of Victoria that took place as a consequence of building the railways. So, Victoria in the 1870s. There was rapid transformation in the colony, remembering it was still a colony of Britain. And these are points, if you can't see them, I will just talk to them. So, of course, Victoria was enjoying the wealth and prosperity of the gold rush that had occurred 2 decades prior to that. Each colony in Australia in the 1870s became self-governed with an elected parliament. And that led to a raft of nation-building activities, including first and foremost the telegraph and the railways. Women were denied ownership of personal property in the 1870s. The majority of the population, for the first time, was born in Australia. And Victoria in the 1870s was one of the most urbanised Western nations. So more people were living in cities than in rural areas. And about a third of Victorians in that time were living in the towns and cities of the colony. Compulsory education was implemented in 1872, and it was to be free, secular and compulsory, something which remains to the present day. The Aborigines Protection Act was founded, or was passed through Parliament just at the start of the 1870s, and it allowed the government to forcibly remove Aboriginal children from their families. So that's the beginning of that particular policy at that time. There was the growth of the middle class for reasons that we'll see later on. And there was more leisure time as we were a very prosperous colony. The first store gift was run in 1878, the same time as the station was built. The VFA was founded in 1877 with Carlton, Melbourne, a team called Hotham, and Albert Park and St Kilda with the 5 founding teams in the VFA, which became the VFL, remembering that Hawthorn is the most glorious of those teams. My youngest son told me the other day that there's only been one team in the course of VFL, AFL, VFL history that has been both the Wooden Spooner and the Premier in 1 year. And that was Fitzroy, who during the war years came 4th, but there were only 4 teams. They made the finals and then went on to win the premiership. There you go. And the first Melbourne Cup was run in 1873. There were other sorts of social transformations, and a new religion was founded in Victoria in the 1870s, the Victorian Association of Progressive Spiritualists, which was a 19th century religion where they spent a lot of time contacting the dead. And that was actually a massive social movement at that time. People were still interested in kind of religious and spiritual matters. Here's some photographs. That's Ballarat in the 1870s, and as you can already see, the effects of the gold rush are well in place with a lot of gorgeous Victorian buildings. Bendigo, that's the railway station in 1878 as well. That's Melbourne Town Hall in the 1870s. Those two are the Davenport brothers. You can see there they're sitting inside a wooden cabinet. There was no Netflix or mobile phones, so entertainment was mostly stage shows done in halls and theatres all around the state. The Davenport brothers in 1878 held what was called a dark seance at the Melbourne Town Hall, and 2,000 people turned out to see them get locked in that cabinet, and then mysteriously musical instruments were floating around the room and playing by themselves. And that was the kind of entertainment that people enjoyed back then. Was it a mystery or was it charlatanism? It turned out to be the latter. So that's the context, the building of the railways in the 1870s. Okay, so these are the facts to the best of my knowledge. All of you are more astute railway experts. The first railway was built in Australia, in Victoria, in the 1850s, and it ran from Port Street down to Port Melbourne. Initially, railways were privately operated affairs, and they were mostly clustered in Melbourne, so there was the St Kilda to Brighton Railway, the Melbourne to Essendon Railway, and so on. These were superseded in the 1860s by the Government Railway Department, and in effect, the government took control in order to have some kind of say about the progress of the railways. Social change meant that there was a rapid expansion of rail in Victoria. So in the mid-1860s, there was just 400 kilometres of track in Victoria. And by 1891, just some 30 years later, there was 4,670 kilometres worth of track, which was an increase of more than 1,000% in 3 decades. So it was really the time of which there was massive expansion. Where the railway lines went in Victoria was highly politicised. They didn't just choose the best spot necessarily, they chose the best spot as a consequence of lobbying. Sounds extremely familiar, doesn't it? So it says here, political football, where to build the Ballarat line, the line for Ballarat. And this, you can't see it, but it was an article that appeared in the Leader in 1875, and it's entitled The Railway to St Arnaud. And it says a large deputation waited on Mr Gillies from the government. And a Mr Cook from Bet said to Mr Gillies, we have a petition from more than 1,000 people about where the railway should go precisely. And the petition mentioned that the route should accommodate the largest number of people and cost less to construct than a line that went, say, in a different direction. And so there was a widespread lobbying about precisely the direction and the location of the railway line. It was a political football. Eventually, the line came through Bealiba. And by the 1880s, it looked like this. And later on, you can come up more closely and see the map. But here is Melbourne and Geelong there, and Bealiba is there. And so this is the network of railway lines that were around Victoria at that time. And here is the Yelta line pushing its way up through Ballarat and on to St Arnaud in the 1880s. And again, the choice of route was intensely political. And here is the progress of the line all the way to Yelta, which I said was slightly north of Mildura, by 1925. And it left, the railway line got to Ballarat in 1862, Creswick by 1874, and so on. It reached Bealiba past Denali in 1878, and it finally made its way to Mildura in 1903. And they had a huge celebration to announce the fact that it made its way to Mildura, and that's how it looks in the present day. Of course, the rail can come up through Melbourne as well, but it mostly was designated to come up through Geelong all the way through to Yalta, North Mildura. Here's some more information just about the kind of politicking that went on in order to ensure its construction. So the Horsham Times reported in the 1890s that they wanted the line to go to Parrot or something like that. And then there was another deputation that wanted the railway line to go up through another particular route and so on. This particular article talks in 1898 how the Standing Committee had visited northwest Victoria to look at potential routes where the railway line might go. There was no railway line at that stage to Mildura, so they were forced to take the coach to Swan Hill, and they got reined in, and it took several days for them to work their way back from Swan Hill down to Melbourne. Such was the kind of problems that arose from not having rail infrastructure. Finally, it reached Mildura in 1903, and that is a photograph from the Herald Weekly Times of the opening, and you can see the thousands of people that turned out in Mildura on the day of the opening. So it was a really big deal. Railways and the social transformation of Victoria. Of course, we know that technology changes our lives. Of course it does. Nothing more so than the mobile phone kind of illustrates that fact. And of course, towns that were along the railway lines prospered as hubs of trade, which is why there is intense politicking about precisely where the railway lines would go. Rail had all sorts of other effects as well. It reduces profoundly the costs of goods, so things like wood, wool, coal, grain, dairy. Those goods became much cheaper to transport and consequently more affordable for more people. And of course, when there's more goods, it expands the scope and size of the market. There is more demand and consequently more production, simply because we're able to move goods faster and quicker. And of course, more goods facilitates jobs and growth. And one of the other interesting things that's less well known is that economic development actually fosters population growth. It causes more cities, more towns, more people to be born. People have higher standards of living, they have better food and clothing, they have better shelter and better health. And all of this is allied to advances in medical treatment that was taking place in the late 19th century. And cities and towns could expand, and all of this was a kind of knock-on effect simply by having more goods being able to be moved more quickly, more cheaply, and more accessibly. The Leader newspaper in 1910 talked about how, in particular, Mildura had been transformed by the arrival of the railways less than a decade previously. And it had an editorial in the Leader newspaper that said, "The Mildura Railway, its value to the state and future extensions." And this is what it said in the editorial. "The railway conveniences which were extended to Mildura in 1903 have exercised an undoubtedly potent influence in promoting Mildura's successful development. Prior to that date, the Murray River was the sole channel by which the produce of the district could find its way to market. As the river is usually too low for navigation during several months of the year, the local settlers were systematically denied essential transportation facilities. That Mildura has made by far its most conspicuous advance since it was connected to the railway." So in a sense, that town is what it is today because of the arrival of the railway, and it was no longer dependent on the river as a way of moving goods. And of course we know that there's been the widespread dereliction of rail in Victoria in recent decades, where road has been favoured as a mode of transportation over and above rail. And that of course is being addressed by an incredible $500 million railway project, the Murray Basin Rail Project, which is rejuvenating the line from Geelong all the way through to Yalta. in order to make the transportation of goods, in particular grain, more straightforward. But we return to this beautiful place here in Bealiba and the railway station. And there's a photograph I took more than 10 years ago of a rainbow when I was sitting on the platform. And it's a really beautiful place, transformed. That's all I have to say today. They're my sources, in case you're wondering where I got my information from. And thanks to Deakin University for providing some of the infrastructure that I've used. Now, my daughter is going to read out a poem.
Hi everyone, my name is Murray, and this is a poem written by Keith Avard, whose dad was a train driver. It's called To Dad. Depression years and times were tough. For most folks there was not enough, but Dad remained employed, you see, providing for his wife and children 3. Our fireman was he, and of special breed, stoking the bellies of iron steeds. I see him now, soot encrusted, belched from the steeds to him entrusted. Our homes over near the railroad tracks, where to and from he trudged, with a Gladstone bag upon his back. Within that bag, its contents now I see. The billy plaque, enamel mug, sugar and some tea. The billy he swung at full arm's length. At last, the prize for which he toiled so hard, reclassified as driver, WNA Avard. Where are the iron steeds and the men who rode them? Maybe the tracks will answer back, replying with that long forgotten clickety, clickety, click clack.
Was provided by Frank Kupke, and I thought when I first read it, I could not hold back the tears of the love of the dad who went from fireman to driver and the pride that that child had. Andrew, thank you so much. We just feel totally enlightened. Down, but you've given us the meat. Thank you. Now we can go back and we'll be entertained for a little while, and then we're going to have our birthday cake.
I'm so innocent, you know. I've only had 9 children, and but since Albert died, it's not been the same. Oh, it's so delightful to be here in this charming town of, where are we? Bealiba. In Australia, with the locals and men in uniform.
She likes men
in uniform. I like my men. I like my men dressed up. That's very nice. Top of it is very nice. She's allowed.
Your Majesty.
On behalf of the Bealiba Historical Society, I welcome you to our birthday celebrations. This fine building is of the Rosedale design and was one of 6 timber and weatherboard stations between Maryborough and St Arnaud. It's the only one remaining, although the former Goldsborough station forms part of Stan and Mavis Shay's home in Malagal. The station consisted of the station master's office, ladies' waiting room and also refreshment room. The residence comprised of kitchen, parlour, 3 bedrooms. Washhouse, bath and toilet facilities were separated from the building. This is typical of the period. The contractor was Mr Summerland, who had the task of assembling the pre-cut flat pack and roofing and cladding that was arrived at the station, and then he had to clad and roof the building. He was also given the contract to complete the platforms. This was completed in 1879. We have on display the original contract drawings prepared in 1878. This drawing shows the original layout of the building and was how Robert and Heather, together with friends of the station, are restoring it to its former glory. Most gracious Majesty, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. Now to introduce our guests in order of our ceremony, but first, Your Majesty will no doubt take comfort in the knowledge that Rachel Buckley, that demented and depraved woman who has been feloniously impersonating your royal self, has been apprehended by the local constabulary and lodged at the asylum pending Your Majesty's pleasure.
Jolly good.
We are also pleased to have the Honourable Louise Staley, MLA, our local Member of Parliament.
I can't do the wave.
And representing close to home, representing the Goldfields Shire, we have Karen Douglas, who is one of the administrators appointed to the Shire. A very warm Bealiba welcome to you all. Your hosts today are Robert and Heather Cooper. The Coopers are the lessees and custodians of the Bealiba station. Providing the musical entertainment, we have the St Arnaud Pipe Band. The band's association with Bealiba goes back over 50 years, and they regularly perform at our Anzac Day ceremony. Also keeping you entertained are the Denali street musicians. We have heard from Associate Professor Andrew Singleton, and he has given us a very informative talk on the history of the Mildura line. We also acknowledge the assistance of the Australian Railways Historical Society, who have provided us with historical information, all of which may be seen in our Station Master's office display. We welcome the many members who have travelled here today, plus all those members of the Camera Club here present. Our celebrations today would not be possible without generous help and support from the following. Her Majesty, who has provided her own flags for the occasion and has kindly taken time out from morning to be with us today. We trust that your excursion to the colony and to be with us here in Bealiba has met with your expectations. The Honourable Louise Staley has kindly contributed to the cost of the flagpoles to enable us to proudly show our allegiance. The Honourable Dan Tehan, the Federal Member for Wannon, who kindly donated the Australian and Indigenous flags. We are extremely grateful to the Goldfields Shire Council and the Denali Welcome Record for their support through the Community Grants Scheme. Denali Museum and Arts have supplied historical material, photos, etc. to our display in the Station Master's office. And did you notice the staff? That was that round thing. That was pivotal to the safe working of the railways. Steve Barnum, who provided our film, The Titfield Thunderbolt, which no doubt tickled your funny bone. Mr. Frank Kupke, who was the station master of Bealiba, whose insight and recollections have been invaluable in making our display possible. Mr. Alan Dennis is also a former station master at Bealiba. He also contributed to our knowledge of the working life of this station. Ray and Chris Newdick of Bealiba Post Office and Store, whose generosity has enabled us to reach everyone in the district. Mr. Andrew Ward, historian and leasee, I should say, of the Golden Square Railway Station, whose book is on display today. Railway buffs and anyone interested can leave their contact details, and we will forward the same to Mr. Ward. Mr. John Tully, local historian, whom you'll shortly hear with our welcome to country and some history of the Djara Wurrung people. Bealiba CWA, who manned the supper room at the hall, they continue to support the Bealiba Historical Society at all of our events, and we always look forward to the goodies they provide. Mr. Andrew George has provided a model railway display for us at the end of the station. David Singleton has been our safety officer today, and together with Robert Cooper, Tide Coburn, got you sorted and parked. Phil and Elena, recent arrivals in Bealiba, they have bought the old Presbyterian church and their classic car display. We had one woman come up this morning, up the street, and said, "Oh God, there's a funeral on."
Not mine.
Not Queen Victoria, we're not ready for her yet. Judy and Jenny, two of our workers, provided all the bunting. There's kilometres of the stuff all around town, and they helped to prepare the Station Master's office. Mr. Mel Van der Holst, he's our Mr. Fix-It for the never-ending repairs needed to keep the old girl looking her best. Now, I just want to remind you that back in about 1950-something, Mr. Russell T. White was the member for Ballarat North, and Russell was never short of a word or 50, and he prattled on for quite some time. In the audience was Mrs. Jones, and Mrs. Jones was profoundly deaf, although she didn't let anybody get away with any cheek, especially us kids. Anyway, Russell keeps talking away, and all of a sudden this big verming voice says, "Has he thanked the dunny man yet?" Russell, to his credit, turned around without batting an eye, and he says, "Good on you, missus. We'd be up that well-known creek if we didn't have the dunny man, wouldn't we?" Right, now, John Tully is going to lead you down the garden path to the entrance to the station, and he is going to kick off our formalities for today with the welcome to country and a brief history of the Wurrung peoples. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We like to acknowledge the Djara as the former owners of this land, which is really a nonsense way to start anything, because Djara never owned land. Land was owned by clans, and the clans that were here with the Bealiba, the red gum people. And it's from them we get the name Bealiba, which means Red Gum Creek. I know we call it Bealiba. The Aborigines called it Bealiba. The Bealiba clan was a strong clan. It was numerous and it had a fairly small territory. We often think that this isn't an important place, but it was. It was one of the most, from an Aboriginal point of view, one of the most heavily populated places in Victoria. Bealiba's not a bad place. It's got water, it's got food, it's got a good climate. If you're walking around without any shoes on, down in Melbourne in the middle of winter, it ain't much fun. Here, when the weather gets bad, they'd head up into the granite hills. Granite sand is ideal. You can dig a bit of hole, put some coals in it, and have a nice warm bed to sleep on. Bealiba, it's reflected in the names. Here it was Bealiba. Further upstream along Cochrane's Creek, it was Cootabeel, which was under the red gum tree. So it was a camping spot. And down where Cochrane's Creek goes into the Avoca River, it was Cat, which means plenty. So it was obviously a good, rich food resource. The clan, although numerous, suffered very heavily in the 1830s, and by 1841, from a peak population, an estimated population of between 100 and 150, there was only 2 left. An old guy and he's an adult son. The son, Nowood, he took the name after here of Charlie Cochrane, and he wandered around. Once he was the last one left, there was nothing really to keep him here, so he went to various government places and just wandered around central Victoria, mixing with various other Aborigines, until ultimately 1893 when he died as an older man. But there had been lots of Aborigines here. If you know Bealiba, there's plenty of scarred trees. There's some very good grafted trees where they grabbed the branches of a red gum tree and grafted them together to make a shape, a symbol to note that it was their campsite. There's a birthing tree. There's a very significant stone arrangement up in the Bealiba range. Probably, well, what some people regard as the most significant ceremonial stone arrangement in Victoria. So we should respect the fact that this was once Aboriginal land, and it is a very good thing for us to acknowledge. Thank you. Now we've got to go back up the top.
Union Jack, and as soon as she does that, we will all join in the royal anthem, God Save the Queen. Here we go. Save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen, God save the Queen. Send her victorious, happy and glorious. Hip hip. Hip hip. Hip hip. Now we'll ask Louise Staley if she would raise the Australian flag. When that hits the top, we shall sing Advance Australia Fair. Just the first verse, I don't want to throw everyone.
Second verse too, do you know?
Australian soul. For we are young and free, with golden soil and all our home with surf by sea. Our land of founding nature, our beauty rich and rare. In history face every step advance Australia fair. In joyful strains and let us sing advance
And I promise not to follow in the steps of Russell White. I'll be somewhat briefer. But I do want to very much thank all of those who have organised today. I think you heard quite a long list, but it probably missed the people who were standing right here because they didn't want to thank themselves. But this is a great community event. There are so many elements of Bealiba's community here, and as you heard, many were thanked. But those of you who have just turned out to be part of this, I think that's a marvellous thing to do. And I particularly want to welcome those from Geelong who are here on a rail type themed day. For you may not know, I hope everybody in Bealiba knows, that if my party comes to government in November, this line will once again have passenger rail on it. And so I hope that when we do the 141st anniversary, we could run a tourist train perhaps even from the standard gauge from Ballarat up to here by then. So I'm delighted to be here. I'm always delighted to do anything rail and anything that's got to do with communities coming together to celebrate our great history. This is just such a lovely event. I do a lot of events, and I really am really overwhelmed at how much thought, detail, care you have all gone to come up with the various elements of today. It's just perfect, and you really deserve to be congratulated. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Louise. I'd just like to take the opportunity, while everyone's present, to thank Robert and Heather for allowing us into their home today. And a special tribute to Heather, who has taken on a mighty task for us. She has fronted ABC Radio, Gold Radio, the Maryborough Advertiser, the Welcome Record, and putting our message out. So thank you, Heather, we're delighted. We would like to present a memento to each of our distinguished guests, and it is one of our mugs that is celebrating our 140th anniversary. Karen Douglas can come over. We'll invite her to cut our birthday cake. We're starting to sparkle up here. Sorry, the wind is playing havoc with our sparklers, so we'll just pretend we've got them all lit. Here we go, big drum roll. Righto, we're going to sing happy birthday to the old girl. To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Bealiba Railway Station. Happy birthday to you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now the children will pass amongst you and give you a piece of cake.